My name is Serena Valley. I was 29 years old when I learned that sometimes love does not end with a screaming match. On that fair. Or some dramatic confession under the rain. Sometimes it ends with broken glass in the sink, and one sentence said with too much pride, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it." And for the first time in 2.5 years, I believed him. It happened on a Tuesday evening. The kind of ordinary evening that should have been forgettable. I was standing in my kitchen. Sleeves pushed up. Warm water running over my hands, while dinner plates soaked in the sink. The house was quiet, except for the low hum of the dishwasher and the faint sound of Arlen Mercer laughing at something on his phone in the living room. Arlen was 27. Handsome in that careless way that made strangers excuse him before he even opened his mouth. He knew how to smile like he was innocent. He knew how to tilt his head like he had been misunderstood. And for a long time, I let myself believe that beneath all the mess, all the attitude, all the casual cruelty, there was a good man who simply needed patience. Then he walked into the kitchen, holding a wine glass. He dropped it straight into the sink. It shattered. I froze. Soap still on my fingers. Glass burst across the basin. Sharp little pieces catching the light like ice. Arlen looked down at it, shrugged, and started to walk away. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Are you going to clean that up?" He turned around slowly, already annoyed. Like my question had interrupted something important. "I'll get to it later. There's literally broken glass in the sink. I'm doing dishes right now. So do them later." Then, that was Arlen. That had been Arlen for months. Maybe longer. Leaving wet towels on the floor. Leaving takeout containers open on the coffee table. Talking down to me in front of friends. Then calling me sensitive when I got quiet. Flirting with women at parties just enough to make me uncomfortable. Then smirking when I noticed. Treating my house like a hotel and me like the staff. "Arlen, please just clean it up," I said. "It takes 2 seconds." He rolled his eyes so hard it almost looked painful. "Oh my God. Serena, you're so dramatic." He grabbed a paper towel, picked up exactly 2 pieces of glass, threw them into the trash, and left the rest sparkling in the sink. I stared at the shards. Seriously, that was when he spun around. Hands on his hips. His face tightening with that familiar look of wounded arrogance. "You know what? This is who I am. Take it or leave it. I'm not changing for anybody." The kitchen went still. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Standing there in designer sneakers I had bought, wearing the watch I had given him for his birthday. Inside the house I paid for. With that smug expression, like he had just said something brave, instead of something deeply embarrassing. And something inside me went quiet, not angry. Not broken, clear. "Okay," I said. "I'll leave it." His smirk flickered. "What?" I dried my hands on the dish towel, folded it over the counter, and walked past him toward the bedroom. He followed me immediately. "Serena, what are you doing?" "Packing your things." His voice pitched higher. "Packing my... Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious." I opened the closet and pulled down his suitcase from the top shelf. The black one I had bought for our Miami trip the year before. The trip he complained about because the hotel room did not have an oceanfront balcony, even though I had paid for the flights, the resort, the dinners, and the rental car. I laid the suitcase on the bed and unzipped it. "Babu." "Stop," he said, suddenly softer. "I didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting to broken glass." "No," I said, folding one of his shirts. "I'm reacting to months of disrespect that just ended with you telling me, 'This is who you are.'" "I believe you." He stood there, mouth opening and closing. But no real apology came out. Only panic. "You can't kick me out. I live here. You stay here." I corrected. Your name isn't on the mortgage. It isn't on the utilities. It isn't on any bills. You don't pay rent. You don't contribute to groceries. You are a guest who overstayed his welcome. His face twisted. Where am I supposed to go? That's a you problem. He laughed once. Sharp and ugly. Wow. After everything we've been through, I looked at him over my shoulder. After everything I paid for, that shut him up for about 3 seconds. Then came the anger. You're being insane. I moved to the dresser and started taking out his clothes. Shirts. Socks. Gym shorts. The cologne he sprayed too much of before going out with friends. I packed everything neatly because, even at the end, I was still more considerate with his belongings than he had ever been with my home. He followed me into the bathroom when I gathered his face wash. Supplements. Expensive hair products. And the electric razor he bought with my credit card. Without asking, "This is illegal." He snapped. You have to give me 30 days. Only if you're a tenant. I am. No. You receive no mail here. Pay no rent. And signed nothing. You're not a tenant. You're a guest. His expression changed then. The anger slipped. He tried tears. Babe, he said, stepping closer. Please. Let's just talk. I love you. I zipped the suitcase. If this is how you treat people you love, I'd hate to see how you treat enemies. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. I carried the suitcase into the living room, then brought 2 garbage bags filled with the rest of his things, and set them beside the door. He trailed behind me, switching masks so quickly, I almost felt dizzy. You're going to regret this. I was stressed from work. My friends were right about you. Please don't do this. You're acting like a child. I pulled out my phone. You can call someone to pick you up. Or, I can call you an Uber. Your choice. I'm not leaving. This is my home too. No. I said. It isn't. And if you refuse to leave, I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. He stared at me, trying to decide if I was bluffing. I wasn't. I was done with the disrespect. Done with the entitlement. Done with the way he made basic decency feel like a negotiation. Finally, he grabbed his phone. Garcia, he said when his best friend answered. I need you to come get me. My girlfriend is having some kind of mental breakdown. 20 minutes later, Cassia pulled up outside. As Arlen dragged his things toward the door, he turned back one last time. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. No one else will put up with you like I did. I almost laughed. Put up with me. I paid for everything while you treated me like garbage. But you're right about one thing. No one else will put up with that. That's why you're leaving. He slammed the door so hard, the picture frames rattled. For a moment, I just stood there in the silence. Then I went back to the kitchen. I carefully picked every piece of broken glass out of the sink. I wiped down the counter. I finished the dishes. And for the first time in months, I smiled while cleaning. But that night was only the beginning. Because Arlen had gotten very comfortable with the life I provided, and he was about to learn what this is, who I am really costs when the woman funding your life finally takes you at your word. 72 hours after Arlen walked out of my house, reality arrived faster than either of us expected. For 2.5 years, he had become comfortable, living a life he never actually paid for. It had happened so gradually that even I hadn't realized how much of his world rested on my shoulders until I removed them. The first morning after he left, my phone started vibrating before I even finished my coffee. Uju de l'Amblesse. My card got declined at the cafe. What did you do? I smiled without meaning to. Of course, he had been an authorized user on my credit card. Before I went to bed the night I packed his bags, I had removed him from every account. 5 minutes later, another message arrived. Hello. Then another, answer me. And finally, are you seriously leaving me stranded with no money? This is financial abuse. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my banking app and reviewed the previous month's statements. Coffee shops, brunch restaurants, boutique, random online purchases, between $400 and $500 every month, on things he insisted were small expenses. Apparently, the espresso machine in my own kitchen had never been good enough. I closed the app for the first time in months. My balance wasn't quietly disappearing. Day 2 brought something even more predictable. Social media. Arlen uploaded several dramatic stories to his followers. When toxic women can't handle independent men? Sleeping on a friend's couch, but at least I'm free. She really threw me out for being myself. The comments poured in. You deserve better. She's controlling. So proud of you for escaping. For about 3 hours. His version of the story worked. Then someone ruined it. My coworker Marcus showed me a screenshot during lunch. His girlfriend, Yad, had commented underneath Arlen's post. Didn't you literally brag last week that Serena pays every bill while you save your own paycheck? The comment disappeared within minutes. Too late. Jade had already taken screenshots. By that evening, they had quietly spread through our mutual friend group. Funny how difficult it becomes to play the victim when people remember what you actually said. That afternoon, my phone rang again. It was Verizon. Arlen had tried transferring his phone line onto his own account. Unfortunately for him, the newest phone, the one I had bought him for Christmas, still had an unpaid balance. $847. Without paying it off first, the transfer couldn't happen. 10 minutes later, he called me himself. This time, his voice sounded completely different. Not angry. Scared. Serena. Please. I stayed silent. I just need you to approve the transfer. I'll pay you back. I leaned back in my chair. When have you ever paid me back? I'll start now. No. Please. No. I can't afford another phone. Then maybe you should have thought about that before telling me to take it or leave it. He hung up. Less than an hour later, someone sent me screenshots of his newest posts. Apparently, I was now an abusive ex who weaponized finances. Interesting choice of words, considering none of the finances had ever belonged to him. Day 3 exposed an even bigger problem. Arlen worked about 15 hours a week at a yoga studio. Not as an instructor, just checking members in at the front desk. Minimum wage. Free yoga classes. That was it. His monthly income barely reached $600. His monthly spending looked very different. Haircuts, designer sneakers, protein supplements, weekend brunches, streaming subscriptions, dinner dates, ride shares because he hated public transportation. Every luxury had quietly been funded by me, while he convinced himself he had somehow earned them. Around noon, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello? Hi. Serena. This is Olivia from Harmony Yoga. I recognized the studio immediately. Yes, I hope I'm not bothering you. Not at all. Arlen listed you as a reference for a payroll advance. I blinked. A payroll advance. Yes. We normally don't do them. But he seemed desperate. I almost laughed. No. I can't recommend that. I understand. She hesitated. He seems very stressed. That's one way to describe it. That evening, another call came. This time from Arlen. Actually, from Cassia's phone. I need to come pick up more of my things. I packed everything. My massage gun. It was in the bags. My gaming headset. Also packed. Me blender. The blender I bought. Silence. Then, you're seriously keeping score? No. I'm remembering who paid. You've become so petty. I've become accurate. There was muffled arguing on the other end. Then another voice appeared. Cassia's boyfriend, Serena. Can you just let him grab whatever he wants? He's driving us insane. Not my problem. I heard the man sigh before, muttering quietly. I don't know how much longer this is going to last. Neither did I. Late that night, another unexpected number appeared on my screen. It was Arlen's mother, Serena. Hi. Diana. Her voice sounded exhausted. Sweetheart. What happened? I knew exactly what story Arlen had given them. He told us, "You threw him out because he dropped a wine glass." It wasn't about the glass. I explained everything. The months of disrespect, the constant mess, the insults, the flirting, the money, the entitlement, and finally, this is who I am. Silence. Then I heard his father, "So that's why he can't move back home." Diane sighed loudly. "Martin." What he answered. "It's true." Then he spoke directly to me. "He lived with us after college." I waited. He behaved exactly the same way. Diane tried to interrupt him. "Martin." "No. She deserves the truth." He continued calmly. "We spent years cleaning up after him." Another pause. "We're not doing that again." I leaned back in my chair. "So you've already set boundaries." "We have." "What are they?" "He gets a full-time job. He contributes. He respects our house. And he refused." I wasn't surprised. Before hanging up, Diane whispered quietly, "We may have enabled him for too long." Her voice sounded genuinely heartbroken. I answered honestly, "It's never too late to stop." She thanked me before ending the call. That conversation stayed with me longer than I expected. His parents weren't bad people. They were simply exhausted, just like I had been. By the end of the third day, Arlen had already begun searching for another woman willing to finance the lifestyle he believed he deserved. A friend sent me screenshots. There he was, posting gym selfies, old vacation photos from a beach resort I had paid for, captions about new beginnings. Within hours, he was exchanging messages with a woman named Vanessa, who loved luxury cars and motivational quotes almost as much as he did. Another friend texted me, "Looks like he's already lining up his next girlfriend." I stared at the screen for a moment before putting my phone down. Good luck, Vanessa. I genuinely hoped she had deeper pockets than I did. By the end of 72 hours, Arlen's situation looked very different from the confident speech he'd given me in my kitchen. He had no permanent place to live, no access to my credit cards, a phone he couldn't fully own, a job that barely covered groceries, parents who finally refused to rescue him, friends already growing tired of his complaints. Meanwhile, my own life became strangely peaceful. I deep cleaned the entire house, without someone constantly leaving dirty dishes, wet towels, empty bottles, and clothes everywhere. The place somehow stayed clean. The grocery bill dropped almost immediately. 3 days alone had already saved me over $160. I slept through the night without anyone stumbling in after midnight, without arguments, without tension, without wondering what mood would walk through my front door. Most importantly, I made an appointment with a therapist. Not because I missed Arlen, because I wanted to understand why I had accepted so little for so long. The broken wine glass had never been the real problem. It was simply the final symbol, one careless act that represented every emotional mess I had quietly cleaned up over the previous 2.5 years. He had been right about one thing. That really was who he was. And for the first time, I was grateful he had finally admitted it. 2 weeks later, everything I'd expected finally happened. The carefully curated social media version of Arlen's life started collapsing under the weight of reality. Living on Cassia's couch lasted exactly 5 days. I found out through mutual friends that the breaking point came on a Tuesday night. Arlen brought Vanessa back to the tiny studio apartment after 2 in the morning. Cassia and her boyfriend were asleep in the next room, separated only by a thin partition. The argument woke the entire building. Cassia's boyfriend completely lost his patience. According to him, Arlen acted as if the apartment belonged to him. When they confronted him, he snapped back. "It's not my fault. You two are too broke to afford a real place." That was the end. Cassia didn't defend him. She dragged his bags into the hallway, locked the door, and blocked his number before sunrise. One more bridge burned. With nowhere else to go, Arlen finally called his parents. A few days later, Diane called me again. She sounded emotionally drained. "He wants to move home." I waited, but he refuses to follow our rules. What rules? He has to get a full-time job. He has to pay rent. He has to help around the house. And therapy, Martin added in the background. Diane Sahil. He says, we're trying to control his life. I couldn't even pretend to be surprised. She asked quietly. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Yes. But it hurts. I know. There was a long silence before she whispered. We spent years protecting him from consequences. Then maybe this is the first time he's actually getting a chance to grow. Whether he accepted that chance was entirely up to him. Instead of going home, Arlen doubled down. Vanessa became his newest opportunity. She drove a leased luxury SUV, filled her social media with motivational quotes about success, and loved expensive restaurants almost as much as Arlen did. For a few days, he acted like he had won the lottery. Date 1. Fancy steakhouse. She paid. His Instagram story featured a perfectly plated steak with the caption, finally being appreciated. Date 2. A rooftop cocktail bar. Halfway through the evening, Vanessa realized she had forgotten her wallet. Arlen reluctantly paid, with almost every dollar left in his account. Date 3. She invited him back to her luxury condo. The luxury condo turned out to be her aunt's basement apartment. The expensive SUV belonged to her employer. The glamorous lifestyle existed mostly on Instagram. Mutual friends later told me they spent the evening complaining about money together. Somehow they were both searching for someone wealthier than themselves. That relationship quietly disappeared within a week. Meanwhile, Arlen's job search was becoming a disaster. Without my address, my car, and my support, simple tasks became difficult. Retail stores wanted open availability. He insisted weekends were unavailable because of yoga. Office positions wanted experience. He had almost none. Restaurants wanted reliability. Former supervisors politely described him as often late. He applied everywhere. Gyms, coffee shops, reception desks, sales position. Out of dozens of applications, only a couple resulted in interviews. One manager later told a mutual acquaintance that Arlen spent more time talking about what salary he deserved than explaining what skills he actually had. The calls stopped coming. His social media changed too. The confident vacation pictures disappeared. Instead came vague complaints. This economy is impossible. No one wants to hire qualified people. Know your worth. The likes slowly vanished. The comments became fewer every day. Even the people who had loudly defended him after our breakup stopped interacting. It's difficult to keep cheering for someone who refuses to help himself. Then, on the 10th night after he left my house, my doorbell rang. 11 o'clock. I already knew who it was before opening the door. Arlen looked exhausted. His designer clothes were wrinkled. Dark circles rested under his eyes. The confidence that once filled every room had disappeared. We need to talk. No, I answered calmly. We really do. We really don't. He stepped closer before I could close the door. Please. Isahil, you have 2 minutes. His eyes immediately filled with tears. I know I messed up. I said nothing. I've been under a lot of pressure. Still nothing. I took everything for granted. He looked around the hallway, as if expecting the house to convince me we had something special. I finally spoke. What we had was me paying for almost everything, while you slowly stopped respecting me. His shoulders dropped. I'll change. I stayed silent. I'll get a better job. Silence. I'll help around the house. Silence. I'll do anything. Then I repeated the sentence that had lived in my mind since the night he left. You told me who you are. He closed his eyes. I was angry. I believed you. I didn't mean it. I did. He swallowed hard. I have nowhere else to go. That's unfortunate. Vanessa kicked me out. I nodded once. My parents won't let me move home. I know. Cassia blocked me. I heard. I'm sleeping in the employee lounge at the yoga studio. For just a second, I felt sorry for him. Not because I wanted him back, because I remembered the man I thought I had fallen in love with before entitlement swallowed him whole. Then another sound interrupted us. A car horn. An impatient driver The rideshare he had arrived in was still waiting outside. The driver leaned out of the window. "Sir, are you coming back? The meter's still running." Arlen covered his face. "I don't have enough money." The driver groaned. I pulled out my wallet. For one brief second, Arlen's face brightened. He thought I was about to rescue him. Instead, I walked outside and handed the driver enough cash to cover the ride, and a generous tip. "Please take him wherever he needs to go." The driver smiled. "No problem." Arlen stared at me in disbelief. "You'd rather pay him than help me?" "Yes." His face twisted with anger again. "You're heartless." "No. I hope you're happy." "I am. You ruined my life." I looked him directly in the eyes. "No. Arlen. You ruined your own life. When you decided basic respect was optional." The driver gently encouraged him toward the car. This time he didn't resist. He simply looked defeated. The next afternoon, I received another unexpected call. Harmony Yoga. "Olivia again. I'm sorry to bother you." "It's okay. I wanted to ask something." "Go ahead." "Did Arlen live with you until recently?" "Yes." She hesitated. "We discovered he's been sleeping here after closing." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry. We can't allow that." "I understand." "He told everyone you threw him out because of one broken wine glass." I took a slow breath. It wasn't about the glass. I explained everything. When I finished, Olivia was quiet. Then she laughed softly. "Honestly, that makes much more sense." "What do you mean?" "He leaves the studio exactly the way you described your house." She paused. "We've warned him several times." 2 days later, Arlen lost that job too. His only reliable income disappeared overnight. By the end of the second week, his situation had deteriorated dramatically. New permanent home, no stable income, no savings. Most of his friends had stopped answering. His parents still required therapy and employment before welcoming him back. He even created an online fundraiser, claiming he needed help getting back on his feet. Almost no one donated. Meanwhile, my own life kept moving forward. I hired a cleaning service, not because I needed one anymore, but because I could finally afford little luxuries without carrying someone else's expenses. Work became easier. Without constant emotional exhaustion, I focused better. My supervisor noticed. I also met someone new. His name was Nathan. On our first date, when the check arrived, he smiled and immediately reached for his wallet. "We'll split it." I smiled. I'd like that. There was no performance, no expectation, no game, just mutual respect. That felt strangely unfamiliar. That same night, I received one more text from an unfamiliar number. "I hope you're happy. I'm staying at a shelter because of you. You threw me away like garbage." I stared at the message for several seconds before locking my phone. I didn't reply, because the truth was painfully simple. I hadn't thrown him away. He had thrown away a healthy relationship the moment he believed kindness was weakness and respect was optional. He had warned me exactly who he was. Eventually, I simply chose to believe him. 1 month after, Arlen looked me in the eye and proudly declared, "This is who I am." I finally heard how the rest of his story unfolded. It was exactly what everyone should expect when someone mistakes entitlement for confidence and arrogance for authenticity. After sending me that last desperate message, Arlen did spend some time in a men's shelter. It didn't last. A volunteer who happened to know my cousin recognized his name and later shared what happened. Within a week, Arlen had already managed to wear out his welcome. He refused to complete assigned chores. He argued with staff whenever they reminded him about house rules. He borrowed another resident's phone charger without permission and insisted it wasn't stealing because he was only using it. He even snuck a woman into the facility after visiting hours despite being warned repeatedly not to. The shelter director finally asked him to leave. She reportedly told him, "Free housing still comes with responsibilities." Apparently, he didn't agree. With nowhere left to go, Arlen tried a different strategy. He signed up for a luxury dating website, describing himself as a wellness entrepreneur, fitness enthusiast, and ambitious businessman looking for a successful woman who appreciated traditional partnership It sounded impressive. Until people started asking questions. One woman asked about his business. He couldn't explain what he actually owned. Another searched his social media and discovered weeks of posts asking for financial help. The third turned out to be married. Her husband unexpectedly arrived at the restaurant after seeing suspicious messages on her phone. The evening ended with shouting. Embarrassed diners. And Arlen being asked not to return to that restaurant. For a while. Mutual friends stopped mentioning him. Then another update arrived. He had met someone. Her name was Olivia. She was 44. Divorced. Financially comfortable. And incredibly lonely. They met at a gas station while Arlen was trying to convince strangers to help pay for fuel. She felt sorry for him. Within 3 days, she invited him to stay at her condominium. Pictures of flowers, dinners, and smiling selfies appeared online almost immediately. The captions were painfully familiar. Real love finally found me. Some people recognize your value. I looked at those photos and felt something unexpected. Nothing. No jealousy. No anger. Just relief that none of it belonged to me anymore. A friend who lived in the same building kept me updated. Within days, Arlen had already begun treating Olivia's home exactly the way he had treated mine. Dirty dishes piled up. Laundry covered the furniture. Packages arrived almost daily. She bought him a new phone. He complained because it wasn't the latest model. She gave him a credit card for emergencies. He used it for clothes, expensive headphones, and online shopping. Then came the familiar pattern. She asked him one evening if he could clean the kitchen before she came home from work. According to my friend, Arlen laughed. You knew who I was when you invited me here. When she insisted, he shrugged. This is who I am. I almost couldn't believe he had repeated the exact same sentence. Some people truly never learn. The relationship unraveled faster than mine had. 5 days later, Olivia discovered he had made no effort to find a job. 8 days later, she realized he had been using her credit card without permission. 11 days later, she came home early and found him openly flirting with another woman in the apartment complex. When confronted, he claimed they were just talking. By day 14, she told him to leave. He refused. He suddenly became an expert on tenant rights. 2 days later, she filed the paperwork to remove him legally. Then, everything became even worse. On the 17th day, Arlen called the police, claiming Olivia had become aggressive. Fortunately for her, the condominium security cameras had recorded the entire argument. The officers watched the footage. It showed Arlen throwing a ceramic plate across the kitchen. It showed Olivia backing away while asking him to leave. Instead of arresting her, they arrested him. During processing, officers also discovered he had an outstanding warrant for failing to appear in court over an unpaid traffic citation from the previous year. Ironically, I remembered offering to help him deal with that ticket months earlier. He had laughed and said he had everything under control. Apparently he hadn't. A few days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Serena? I recognized his voice immediately. He sounded exhausted. Broken. For the first time since I'd known him. There wasn't even a trace of arrogance left. Please. I stayed quiet. I know you probably hate me. Silence. I need help making bail. I closed my eyes. I'll pay you back. I asked one simple question. With what money? Arlen. He began crying. I'll get a job. You've been saying that for months. I swear this time. You also promised you'd change. He sobbed harder. It's scary here. I took a slow breath. You know what was scary? He didn't answer. Living every day wondering what mess I'd be cleaning up next. Another silence. I'm sorry. I believed he meant those words. I also understood something important. Being sorry and accepting responsibility are not the same thing. No. Arlen. You're sorry because you're facing consequences. I was asking for respect long before this. Then I ended the call. That was the last time we ever spoke. He remained in custody for several days before resolving the charges. By the time he was released, Olivia had packed every one of his belongings and left them with a relative. She had already changed the locks. His parents still refused to let him move home unless he committed to therapy, steady employment, and respecting household rules. This time, they didn't give in. Not once. Months later, I heard he had finally accepted a full-time job at a local car wash. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. Whether he kept it, I honestly don't know. As for me, life became almost unrecognizable. The money I once spent supporting someone who never appreciated it stayed in my savings. Within a month alone, I had saved over $2,000. My house stayed clean, peacefully clean. Not because I cleaned more often, because nobody was undoing my effort anymore. Work noticed the difference too. Without constant stress draining my energy, my focus returned. I earned a promotion that I had been working toward for over a year. Nathan and I continued seeing each other. One evening he cooked dinner at my house. While we cleaned the kitchen together afterward, he smiled and handed me a towel without either of us saying a word. It was such a small gesture. Yet I nearly cried. Not because it was extraordinary, because I'd forgotten what ordinary respect felt like. Later that night, he asked about Arlen. I told him everything. When I finished, Nathan laughed softly. So he really looked you in the eye and said, "This is who I am," while refusing to clean up broken glass. Yes. He shook his head. That's like someone admitting they're reckless, and then acting shocked when people stop trusting them. I smiled. Exactly. Looking back now, I don't think the broken wine glass ended my relationship. The relationship had been breaking long before that. The glass simply made the cracks impossible to ignore. I learned 5 lessons I will never forget. When someone tells you who they are, believe them. An ultimatum is still a choice. And sometimes accepting it is the healthiest answer. Love is never supposed to mean cleaning up another adult's emotional or literal mess forever. Respect is not a luxury. It's the minimum requirement. And peace is worth far more than staying with someone who mistakes your kindness for permission to mistreat you. About a year later, I received one final message from an unfamiliar number. I've been in therapy. I finally understand how selfish and entitled I was. You deserved better. I hope you found happiness. I read it once. Then I locked my phone. I never replied. Whether he truly changed wasn't my responsibility anymore. I genuinely hoped he became a better man someday. Not for me. For the next woman who might otherwise mistake potential for character. As for me, I was standing once again in my kitchen. Only this time, there was no broken glass waiting in the sink. Nathan was setting the table. Dinner was almost ready. The house was peaceful. And for the first time in years, home finally felt like home again.